The knife is a Spyderco Para 3 in K390. This is a bento box shop exclusive following their PM2 and K390 release. As soon as this came out, I picked one up the day that they put it out. And immediately after that, I found myself very busy with work and family and just general life stuff. And I didn't have a chance to really get to the knife or sharpen it or carry it or anything for several weeks. I knew that I wanted to do something on the knife. I wanted to do some kind of video, but I really felt like I had covered my bases with the PM2 video as far as the steel is concerned. In the comments section of my review, my video on the PM2, there was some people talking about how I go about burr reduction and really asking for more detail on that. I wanted to address edge longevity as far as K390 is concerned, especially on these models, because I was seeing really great results. And the idea of touching base in more detail on burr reduction, I thought might be interesting, because burr reduction and the final formation of the apex kind of goes hand in hand with edge longevity. Now, edge longevity is kind of an all-encompassing thing. There's a lot of details to it, but burr reduction is definitely an important factor. I've sharpened this knife several times now, gone through the edge several times on different materials, and the sharpenings that I'm doing and the sharpening for this video, I was using Veneve's diamond water stones. I've been using these stones. I'm continuing to use these stones, and I'm enjoying them very much, and I'm very pleased with the results that I'm seeing. So in a previous sharpening of this knife where I was recording and possibly using material for a video, going through the sharpening process, I got to the point in the video where I was going to do burr reduction, and I was going to record some of it, and I just, for whatever reason, I just kind of let the camera go. And I just started talking. I didn't plan it. I wasn't thinking about it beforehand, and it's unusual. I mean, I don't script anything, but generally I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about when I do a video. I think it out, and I have an idea of the subject matter that I want to address. But there's usually some thought process beforehand. With this, there was nothing. I mean, it was just completely off the cuff. After the fact, I went back and looked at the footage, and it's not perfect. There are some things that I would phrase differently, and there's some aspects to the footage where there's stuff out of frame and not in the shot and that kind of thing. But I'm fairly happy with the footage, and at the very least, it's definitely natural. So I thought to myself, let's go ahead and just throw it in, and it's the whole process of burr reduction and burr minimization using these stones. So, and that's really a relevant point. If I jump from one type of stones to the next, I mean, for instance, these are diamond water stones. If I was to move to diamond plates, it would be a different thing. There would be a different process to it. But given that people are asking, and these are the stones that I've been using, I thought let's just throw the process in there and the discussion that went with it, and just let it be what it is. So this is that footage for burr reduction. It's best to use a clean stone. Got this knife, I took it down through the stones, finished on the 1200, worked on the 1 micron strop for a few minutes, and then checked it against the hair. And it was hair splitting sharp, but it wasn't crazy. It was just, I don't know, able to cut a free hanging hair, able to whittle it if you got the angle right. What I want to do is I want to see if I can reduce burr and make a difference after the 1 micron strop. So I'm going on the same angle that I have been. I'm just doing it much more lightly. I'm going to go side to side, and what this is going to do is it's going to weaken any excess steel there. I'm not using enough pressure to form a burr on the other side. I'm just kind of, if there is any burr there, I'm just kind of beating it up. But it's the same motions that I use in sharpening, and it's the same angle. Any of this business about angle change is silliness. I mean, unless you're doing a micro bevel, but that's a different thing altogether. Same with stropping. Stropping is done at the same angle that you sharpen at, or should be anyway. I gotta really get this flush, because with this, what you run the risk of is micro beveling the edge. You don't want that. And again, keeping it super light. I'm looking to feel the bevel slap against the stone flush when I do that. I can feel it flatten out against the stone. Now I've got almost feels like burr on both sides. It's not, but it's almost what it feels like. This is more intuition than following the burr, looking with a flashlight, looking with your, feeling with your finger. I'm not against those things. I'm just saying what this is, what I'm doing at this point. There's a little bit of touch, knowing where it is from feel, but a lot of it is intuitively knowing where the burr is going to go, or the root of the burr, or whatever you want to call it. I don't break up the burr into pieces. A wire edge is a burr, a root is a burr, a root burr is a burr. It's all the same. It's all the same. Just like people try and break up honing and touch-ups and sharpening into different categories. It's not different categories. It's all sharpening. People want to make things more complicated than they are. Maybe different aspects of sharpening. Say sharpening is more than just one thing, just like a burr is more than just one thing. There's aspects to it, fine, but don't break it up into categories that confuse people. I want to see how a hair reacts to this edge. I don't expect it to whittle. That's not what I'm trying to do. I just want to see when I drag a hair across it what it's doing. Starting to jump a little bit, so I'm going to go to a 1 micron. Part of what I'm doing with this is also I'm testing this strop. I want to see what this strop does. Not being freshly loaded, having been used, sitting around. This is the soling leather strop that Ohio Apexing sent me. So this is loaded with 1 micron. Ken Schwartz poly diamond emulsion, 1 micron. This strop did phenomenal with the last few sharpenings. Then I let it sit for a few weeks. I haven't loaded it for this one. I just want to see what happens without a fresh load on there. And now, ideally, from what I was doing on the stone, the burr was weakened enough that when I'm working on this 1 micron, it's just going to come off. It's beat up, it's minimized, and I'm getting enough stropping in, hopefully, to, after the burr is removed, have a well-formed apex from the strop. You can't just rip the burr off and say, there we go, now my apex is great. Your apex isn't going to be great. You need to strop for a moment. Reform the apex from the strop. The apex formation has to do with burr removal and then stropping after the fact. And of course, it depends on what kind of performance you're looking for. If you're in a survival situation, who cares? We're not talking about that. This is really for people who geek out on this, sit around and go nuts about their knives and their edges, and they want precision tools with a precision job done on them. So took it right in half. So again, that was the footage. Not what I would call perfect footage or even perfect discussion on the subject, but I think that it's adequate, and I think that it makes some good points. And it was in the moment, and I like the fact that it was in the moment and it just kind of happened. So that's why I decided to leave it in. And again, that's burr reduction given these stones and the kind of progression that I'm doing and the kind of finish that I'm dealing with. If factors like that, like the stones being used, or even the steel being used, or the edge finish that I'm going for, if that changes, then my procedure can change with it. I've never subscribed to the idea that there's one way of doing things. So there's different ways of going about it to get very good results, and I don't adhere to any one way, but I thought that it would be a good way to address the subject, being that people were asking about it. So this Para 2 and Para 3 K390, what I'm seeing from the knives is very, very good results. Very good edge longevity. And edge longevity and burr reduction, and consequently the final apexing of the knife, are very much related topics. I have heard mixed results on the Rockwell that people are getting from this run of K390. I've seen anywhere from 61 to 64. So I'm not sure what the models that I have are Rockwell at. I don't know, but what I do know is that the results that I'm seeing, the performance I'm seeing, is very, very good. Very good front end sharpness. I thought that it might be interesting to give a demonstration of the front end sharpness that I'm seeing in these knives, and with that, maybe some discussion on the sharpening of the knives. The 150 grit, you want slow movements, and you want to check frequently. Light pressure, doesn't take much. Stone will do the work. Let it do the work. The 240 grit Veneve, you're just moving through. It's a 50 to 40 micron. Removing the burr from the previous stone. Just moving through this one, refining the scratch pattern. With the 400 grit Veneve, you're really starting to change the finish on the edge. It's a 14 to 10 micron stone, a little bit less powerful than the 50-40. You start to bring up a degree of polish with it. Kind of sets you up for the next stones, for the 800 and 1200. The 800 grit stone is a 7 to 5 micron. This is where the sharpness really starts to come up, the polish really starts to come up. Very smooth stone, you don't need much pressure. With these lighter Veneves, the higher grits, you can gouge the stone. It's not hard to do. So you want to be careful with your approach and how you handle things, especially when flipping to the other side, moving on to a side with Burr on it. 1200 grit stone is a 3-2 micron. It's the finest of Veneve's OCP stones. I'm really enjoying it as a finishing stone. I really like the polish that it brings up. It's a perfect setup for the 1 micron strop. It gives a nice mirror polished edge if you handle it right. It's very smooth to touch. It can gouge, so be careful with that, but I'm really preferring this stone. I'm finding really great results with some of the steels that sharpen better. This 1 micron strap has been reloaded. I really want the max performance out of this blade if I can have it, so I reloaded the strap both with the 1 micron and the 10th micron. The action on it's very smooth, and the cutting power of the compound is polydiamond emulsion from Ken Schwartz, and polydiamond cuts really well if it's quality stuff and it's in good concentration, so I don't think that's going to take very long to fully have this burr removed. The 10th micron strap is the final polish on the edge. Brings the sharpness all the way up. Now this strap has been reloaded, so one of the things that I need to do is when I'm done with this stropping, I need to really clean the edge off, because compound will come off from a freshly loaded strap and it'll clog the apex of the knife, which won't make it won't make a difference in real cutting tasks, but as far as whittling a hair, that's where it can make a difference. You can get a false negative on the whittle just because the edge is loaded with compound. So that was the footage. Very good demonstration of edge longevity from K390. And of course, in that footage, there was no stropping before whittling the hair. I just wiped the edge off with my fingertips. I gave it a quick wipe on my pants, and the edge was hair whittling sharp. Now, that footage, I mean, the idea of that footage and catching it in that way, that was born from real-life events that happened. I had friends over, and we were sitting around the fire pit, and we were talking, and I was kind of piecing up wood with the Paramilitary 2 and K390, and tossing the wood in the fire. And when I was done, I noticed the hair on my jacket, one of my wife's hairs, and I pulled it off, and I was able to whittle the hair. And one of my friends looked at me and he said, you really need to document that. So that kind of got the idea rolling in my head of doing it in that scenario and in that way, and kind of showing it that way. And I thought to myself, it would be a nice change of scenery for the channel. So that was why I went about it the way that I went about it. But K390, I'm very pleased with it. I'm really glad that we're seeing it come out in more models. I'm really happy with the results that I'm seeing, given the sharpening progressions that I'm doing with these stones. I think that the results are excellent. I'm looking forward to getting this in the pocket and getting carry time with it. I'm glad that Bento Box decided to put it out and I think that Spyderco did a good job with it.